Welcome back to the DeliveringMore platform, folks. I'm your host, Ben Alkire. Thank you so much for consuming the content morning, afternoon, and evening. We appreciate it. As always, if you could, hit that subscribe button down below. That's going to help us out more than you could ever know. I have another exciting episode of the DeliveringMore podcast to get into with you folks today. Today's guest is a lifer in the restaurant industry, starting his time with Earl Enterprises, the president and co-founder of Virtual Dining Concepts, and most recently, the founder of Linked Eats. Welcome to the platform, Robbie Earl.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Super excited to be here. Huge fan of Deliver That. Been following all of your posts and your podcast as well. So thanks for having me.
I thought we could start here. Being a graduate from Boston University with a hospitality degree, and obviously following in the footsteps of such a massive name and individual in the restaurant industry like your father, Robert Earl, sometimes children don't necessarily want to follow the path that their parents laid out for them. So I just wanted to ask kind of candidly, was it always a foregone conclusion that the restaurant industry would be the route that you end up taking?
Well, some would say it's fate, others blind luck and falling into it. But I would say I started from an early age learning the restaurant concepts that we had, working as a busser, working as a host, working in some of the merchandise departments. At a young age, 13, 14, 15, spending some summers in the restaurant here or there. And originally I hated it. It wasn't a passion of mine to begin with. I was much more into video games back then. But slowly but surely, the more I learned, the better I got. And you spend enough time doing something, you end up being pretty decent at it. So now I think I somewhat get to call myself a lifelong restaurateur, even though it's only been 31 odd years. And please God, I have a lot more left in me to go on there. But it's interesting. You know, one of my favorite quotes is, "We stand on the shoulders of giants, and only by doing that can we see much further." And I mentioned that quote before, and following in the footsteps of someone like my father, very big fan of entrepreneurs like J.P. Morgan, Marjorie Post, as well as John Paul Getty, all had very influential parents, and their seat was very much sat at the table for them already, and they managed to continue from there, building on top of what already existed. So huge inspiration from that, and found my way into hospitality, what I'm doing now at Virtual Dining Concepts and Linked Eats, and really excited to just help restaurants and give them this culmination of digital knowledge.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's super intriguing to find where you take inspiration from too. I'm happy you kind of threw all those names out there. Obviously massive names in over numerous industries. Something you mentioned I want to touch on a little bit, if you don't mind. If you would have gone somewhere else, you mentioned being interested in video games. I imagine that's just as a kid growing up, but did you ever have another field of interest, or growing up, did you have other dreams to be something else other than a restaurateur?
Well, I think we all wanted to be an astronaut at one point. I think Elon's brought that back a lot in kids these days. Even though the number one sought after job, I think, by kids is a content creator these days. At one point, you know, I wanted to do something in architecture, but I think where my passion really lies is just in building great companies, building things that people love, and things that customers enjoy, and, you know, helping out different communities to build a network.
Hell yeah, man. That sounds amazing. Architecture. I'm amazed at what's been built some of these days. Unbelievable stuff that's getting put up, and how quickly they do it nowadays is wild sometimes.
It's fascinating. There's a lot of processes that have developed over the years that have just built on, and, you know, I'm a much bigger fan of the older stuff, and we've kind of lost our artistic touch. But hopefully everything heals with time, and we get back there to some more of the Frank Lloyd Wright and some of the fascinating architects in the early days in LA.
Yeah, I would actually tend to agree with that as well. Um, Scooting back a little bit to the restaurant side of things, obviously you mentioned Earl Enterprises being a massive name in this industry and has been successful for countless years at this point in time. You have Bertucci's, Bravo, Brio, Earl of Sandwich, kind of the main QSR type restaurants, sit down type restaurants. But I just thought an interesting question. I like when people are heads of restaurant brands and conglomerates like this, finding out some favorite menu items. And I thought an interesting question would be if you could create a dinner out of your favorite menu items from Brio, Bravo, Buca, and Earl of Sandwich. What do you think that dinner menu would look like?
Oh man, an indulgent Last Supper, I would probably go with an Earl's Club from Earl of Sandwich or the original, two of the best sellers there. Great hot sandwich. I'd probably get some of the chicken from Chicken Guy. Goes into a pressure cooker. Beautiful hand breaded chicken, which is amazing. Um, and then Brio Bravo, you can't go wrong with some of the flatbreads at those restaurants, maybe some of the lamb chop dishes or the higher end ones. And, I'm a big fan of spaghetti bolognese as a cheap meal. So that's probably going to be my go-to.
Hell yeah. Bolognese can't go wrong. I'm big. I love me a meat sauce. I'm big pasta guy. Love it.
It's the best.
Hell yeah, man. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you indulging some of my intro questions there. I'm excited to talk about this. I know I haven't personally seen you do a ton of interviews. I know you sat down with Jonathan Mays earlier this year, and it was an amazing conversation I thought you guys had, and kind of built the foundation for how you guys were going to move forward. I know you teased linked eats in that interview, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to start. Obviously, the president and co-founder of Virtual Dining Concepts nowadays. You have a couple massive brand names under that, beginning partnerships with the Major League Baseball, with NASCAR. You have the PMT podcast with Part of My Cheesesteak. So a couple massive name brands that you've undertaken and been able to develop over the years. Starting with Ballpark Bites, I feel like is an interesting place to start. I think it's not controversial to say the MLB audience is kind of coming and going nowadays. Obviously, they have the pitch clock to speed the game up. Attention spans are a little lower, people are saying these days, so you kind of got to change the game a little bit to accommodate towards that. But what is the value proposition for something like Ballpark Bites? Because obviously, the experience of an MLB game is being at the game. So is it to bring that experience to people in their homes, or what was that partnership like with MLB, and how do you begin something like that?
So everything that we do at VDC is about curating experiences for different audiences. And there's no better experience than a ballpark experience. I recently went to the Dodgers. It's still phenomenal. Yes, a little bit slower than a soccer or a football or a basketball, but it's got a massive following. And MLB is an incredible organization to work with. And so what we really wanted to do was create a culinary experience, which is an extension of MLB and the ballpark experience that you can get at home. So it's the same as selling a t-shirt or selling a CPG product, just getting a different experience. And really, when we curate these experiences, we want to take that audience and bring it to the restaurant we're partnering with. So if you're a small business owner, if you're a national chain, you can leverage the power of these massive IPs that otherwise on your own you wouldn't be able to. And it would cost millions upon millions of dollars to even get in the room. And we found a way to bring that to the masses, to help the restaurant community and to really activate it in a unique way.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I feel like hot dogs and some of the menu items for Ballpark Bites, that's something most restaurant kitchens have at leisure. So it's not like have this big undertaking and ask like, hey, add this equipment, add that equipment to be able to add these menu items. It's something you can do at the ready and you're ready to go.
Yeah, everything that we do, we take into account how a restaurant works and how operators act within the kitchen and how their unique setup is. And we really try and simplify the concept down to what we can deliver as a great experience, what we can ensure quality on, by limiting the SKUs, by using similar equipment, same techniques that you have. Of course, on MLB, there's a couple of unique SKUs there. We've got a amazing pretzel bun that goes with the hot dog and some decadent toppings. And really, it's just a value experience for the customer at the end of the day to have something different on delivery platform.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And in terms of NASCAR Refuel, I think it's a super intriguing brand that has been developed as well in recent times. Kind of similar to the MLB product. It's a very niche audience in terms of who skews towards the NASCAR product and pays attention to that. But I think a similar question, obviously, is the goal there to just have those NASCAR fans have another way to connect with that product outside of being at those races and outside of when that season is actually happening?
Everything we do is about creating an experience for this fan base that can also be an extension, and people like you or me who might not necessarily be into NASCAR, I'm not sure if you are, can still enjoy the food. Or we hear about it from a friend or a buddy and we're willing to try it once. And 40-50% of our customers end up repeating. So that's a great metric to have. And so they come back for the experience there. And NASCAR is, no exception to that. It's a great fan base, great experience. And how can we deliver that customer to your restaurant? We've actually started in a lot of places going on menu. And that's been a really big push for us. And it's going to be a huge push coming up. And you're now getting your virtual sales, your digital restaurant sales, but you're also getting the ability to bring these IPs in-house and drive audiences to your actual restaurant. We did that with our Man vs. Fries concept. We've done that with Pardon My Cheesesteak and Bolero before, and a few different other clients like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting funnel to think about too, when you can actually bring things in-house like that. I think the VDC LinkedIn page, maybe just the other day or within the last week, posted about NASCAR Refuel opening up in more IHOP locations. And something I just kind of prepping for this interview, I was seeing what restaurants kind of undertake these virtual concepts and things like that. And I noticed in Ohio, a lot of the Refuel concepts were at IHOP locations. And I just wanted to ask candidly, I guess, how important is finding a restaurant partner like that is so broad and so national and a massive chain like that? Does it help influence the success of a concept, or help it find success quicker because you can have this outlet that is so much greater and expansive than like a mom and pop or someone a little smaller who wants to undertake that product?
It's a fascinating question. So I'm really glad you brought the conversation there. And what we found is that if we can standardize a brand across a number of restaurants, it's a better experience for the customer, and it also yields higher sales in the long term. So the way that the virtual brand market unfolded, which nobody really knows the size of, we think it's 50,000 virtual storefronts all around the country at the moment, of which we're still a small fraction of. We'd like to be more there, obviously. A majority of them are, you have your own restaurant in Columbus, and you've opened up 5 or 6 different ghost kitchens utilizing similar food. And that's really changing because the guidelines are getting stricter. There's a higher barrier to entry now for virtual brands and delivery restaurant concepts coming in. And so, you're going to see a shift from everyone doing their own independent one to more standardization, more control, more ubiquity across the group. And to your question of numbers, it's pretty interesting. We've done a lot of these concepts and not everything works. And I've seen concepts work at one store and fail at 10, but work at 100. And then I've seen concepts not work at one store, not work at 10 stores, not work at 100 stores, and then really work at 500 stores. But where the sweet spot is really 1,000 stores. And 1,000 stores, you start to feel the network effects. You can build a more robust brand, and we managed to achieve that with a few of our brands now, and we really see those ones pull ahead of the pack when you get to those numbers. It's sort of anywhere in between is no man's land before that. But if you take, one example that I'm very fond of at the moment, I don't know if you've heard of Hunt's Pizza.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Fascinating concept. They have 7 or 9 thousand of them all across the country, and they sell the dough and the ingredients into some of the restaurants, gas stations preparing them, and fascinating to see the size of it and the performance of it at that size. So, size does matter when you're trying to build the brand. Of course, you have to measure all the consistency and make sure the quality stays the same. But, really anywhere in between, it's very hard to tell how it's going to do in the long run.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have a Hunt's in a local gas station right around the corner here. I'm gonna have to get. I haven't thought about it, but I recognize the name and the logo now that you said it. I'm gonna have to go give that a try.
The business case is incredible for that. So give it a try and give it a read up on just what they've built.
Hell yeah. I'll do that. Something you brought up towards the end there, which I think is super intriguing for me in terms of the virtual concepts moving forward, just the consistency and quality piece. And you kind of mentioned the sweet spot being 1,000+ locations and being able to roll it out in that manner. Do you find that being able to oversee a product like that in that phase of business at that large of a scale, that keeps you able to gauge if this quality product can be consistently produced at this helm of a stage and with these restaurants? Or are you saying that like when it's a lower level 10, 20, 50, 100 locations, there's too much variable and you can't really understand what that data is presenting to you?
It's more so the variability of the data. When it comes to quality, it's important to test everything. It's important to simplify, and it's important to remove a lot of chances for error. So, we test everything pretty thoroughly. And if you're in the delivery business and you're in the restaurant business and you're on delivery, you should test your food, put it in a container and let it sit there for 30, 45 minutes or however long it takes to get to you and see what it tastes like at the end. You might find that you want to cull your menu back a little bit and only have limited selections because it's not the best experience for people at the end of the day. So, the first kind of line of defense is that it's purpose built. It's a digital brand, digital audiences, and attracting digital customers. And so, that lends itself to many different things that help ensure quality.
Yeah, and making sure it lends itself to delivery is a major key in this kind of realm. You mentioned bringing stuff on menu inside of these restaurant brands and things like that. Buddy's Cake Slice. It's a huge partnership with Chuck E. Cheese. Over 400 locations. I think I saw a post over the last couple weeks or something like that. A big announcement for you guys, and more to come, I assume. So similar in the nature with the NASCAR and the IHOP, you have buddies with Chuck E. Cheese. Do you feel the same with that kind of partnership in that brand? Once you find one brand that sticks with one virtual concept, you just let it run and see where it goes from there? Or do you then still try to roll out buddies at other concepts as well?
Yeah, so Chuck E. Cheese is an incredible partnership. David McPhillips, a very visionary CEO over there. And what we've done is we've rolled out Buddy's Cake Slice on menu, and it's also available for delivery. And you really see the difference. The sales double, triple, and you're doing some of the in-store business as well. You get more flow through, more execution on it. And in this case, though, on Buddy's, there's not much execution. It's a pre-packed cake that's already ready, and there's not much labor involved in it. But for other concepts, it lends itself to execution. And to double back on your question, I think every kitchen can take a number of concepts and a number of dessert concepts. Dessert concepts are a little bit less work than a regular concept, but each kitchen has capacity to take on certain items. And in this case, Buddy's works really well at Chuck E. Cheese, and they've been a phenomenal partner, and that partnership is great. And we expanded it over the course of the year over there.
Yeah, it's impressive. Yeah, I'm a big Chuck E. Cheese guy growing up. Haven't been back since, but I miss that pizza a little bit. It's always a great product. I loved it over there.
You gotta go check it out. Maybe you have some nieces, nephews, and can take them.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Yeah. So I mean, the VDC concept, man. I know we talked to me and Darian talked to Stephanie. I think sometime last year, when she was the CEO. And now obviously things have moved forward, and you guys have just continued to make waves and kind of. I know there's been a huge discussion, like our ghost kitchens on the way out, our virtual concepts. Was it just a fad? So I think you guys are really kind of proving that it's really just kind of about the implementation, the purpose of it, and you can find success if you build it correctly.
Well, the market is still massive. It's just focus in our industry shifts from time to time. Catering is the hot topic today, and tomorrow something else might be the new flavor of the quarter or flavor of the month. But catering is a phenomenal, phenomenal thing. And what you guys do is great, by the way, and more restaurants should 100% dive into catering. It's massive, massive booster. But coming back to virtual brands, I think it goes in cycles, and we're at the beginning of a new cycle, and that new cycle is going to bring new life into the space. We've cut back our concepts, focused on what works, focused on expanding the ones that work. We're moving into the on-menu segment. We're going to talk about technology in a minute, some of the stuff we've been able to develop from our digital learnings. And we're also, starting to venture out into the licensing business of taking existing restaurant concepts and bringing those into the fold of our ecosystem for distribution.
Yeah. I mean, the technology piece, I'm happy to get into it. Obviously a massive announcement, I think at the end, towards later of July, this past month, Linked Eats, a massive new concept that you guys are undertaking, have some revenue management products, marketing automation, pricing intelligence, which I think is a interesting word to use instead of dynamic pricing, after it got a little negative buzz after the Wendy's announcement some months ago. So that's an interesting take on it. But what is Linked Eats to you? What was the vision behind it? How long did it take to develop? And yeah, let's talk a little Linked Eats.
Yeah, so Linked Eats is really the culmination of all of our knowledge in managing digital brands into purpose-built products that can help you manage your delivery business. As the channel becomes more and more popular, as more revenue comes through it, you want to get the most out of it. So you want to manage it more efficiently. And some of these incredible teams that are managing it today, there's so many different facets. And so where we come in, we're really a partner to help you automatically manage some of the more mundane things that are going to take you a considerable amount of time to do, so that you can free up your time, you can do more, you can get more budget, you can make more money from it. And really there's, 20 to 100 different things that you can be doing on delivery proactively. You can be answering your reviews. When you answer your DoorDash and your Uber Eats reviews, you can gradually move up your star rating, which creates more visibility, which creates more orders. You can manage chargebacks, because sometimes you're making the food and it gets delivered to the customer, and saw that DoorDash just announced they're cracking down and creating passwords for users, just the same way that Uber has done before, to try and crack some of that fraud. And so we're really an ally in all of that. And intelligent pricing, you're right, it's an interesting word, intelligence, and dynamic got a bad rap. And what we do differently is we're sort of the only solution that ever figured out how to do it in real time, and how to actively manage it and use a computer and intelligence to change the lever. And you probably know this as well. What everyone's doing is they have an inflation tool built into the middleware or built into the system, and they're trying to account for inflation. And most cases, it's a little bit too much. So what we do is we effectively manage that tool so that you get the most. You get higher conversions, you get higher retention, and that's why it's intelligent. And we do a number of things on the value meal side of things, but value meal pricing is only as good as the marketing that you do behind it. So you have to market it as well. And we've done some collaborations with DoorDash on how to market some of those different promotions that we do, that are intelligent pricing, I would say, versus just straight up discounting and taking away from the bottom line. So, there is a level of sophistication to it, but a level of simplicity that just makes it easier. And it's something that is already happening. We sell a product for a certain price, and customers are either willing to pay for it or they aren't willing to pay for it. So it makes sense to find the optimal ratio. It makes sense to get credit for the good things that you're doing, and it makes sense to have a little intelligence behind it on a store by store basis instead of having to look at it every day yourself.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Something I wanted to ask, I have a handful of questions after that response, but I want to start here. I think I know the product is very focused on the 3PD and the interaction with those marketplaces and kind of overlaying on top of them, or you call it middleware, I believe. But is there an avenue where this product works with like first party applications as well, or just with in-house technology where it can integrate with that kind of thing as well?
Yes. So we've started developing some of that work out because some of our clients have repeatedly asked for it. And 3PD is only one side of the story. There's 1PD, and then there's in-house, actual in-house. And there's several ways to order in an omni-channel world these days. And part of the end vision that we have is, can we start to create better experiences for that customer, get you a good profile of that customer, and create offers and incentives no matter what channel that they're going on intelligently. So, one of the major applications of AI, well, there's two or three, I'd say, right now in our space. The first one is drive-through technology. You've seen Taco Bell, Taco John's doing amazing stuff there. Then there's the call center side of things, where you've got these companies answering the calls for you, and they're filling in that mundane task. And what we're doing right now is focusing on 3PD delivery and helping you automate some of those workflows and functions that you already do. And from a CRM side and a first party data side, there are a lot more things that you can be doing to get a complete picture. So yes, the product lends itself to that. The intelligence lends itself to that. We've just narrowly focused on third party. We have a strong specialty there, a deep understanding of how things work. And, that's enabled us to create products that actually deliver returns.
You mentioned kind of catering being one of the hottest topics in the industry right now. Something that I feel like I've been seeing a ton of, and you mentioned with the new DoorDash passcodes and thing, the chargebacks and reconciliation, building a product that is geared towards that. What are you seeing that brands are needing or asking for, or what does the reconciliation side of the business look like from your guys' perspective?
Yeah, so there's two products in here that we're talking about. There's recapturing your chargebacks and reconciliation. And I'll kind of start with the second one because it lends itself to the first one. Reconciliation, delivery is so new that it's become a headache for a finance team to manage. You've got your point of sale, you've got your middleware, and you've got DoorDash, Uber Eats, all of these channels, catering channels. And the number that shows up at the end of the day in terms of sales or in terms of discounts, in terms of returns and items like that, is never 100% across the board. So it's this massive fact-finding endeavor that you go on this quest of pulling multiple different reports into one place and trying to discern what happened, where it happened. And in some cases, bank account details were missed and just updates on platforms. And, reconciliation really helps weed through the mess of that and show you a digital P&L statement of what's happening on those channels so that you can match it up to your POS and get a more accurate sense. So it's solving the need for getting back your time on searching for the answers and then identifying a problem real quick. Then the recapture side of things is, how do we get proactive on some of those things? And it actually goes hand in hand with an uptime feature and other items. So, what is actually happening in your delivery business? Are you getting a significant amount of downtime? Are you getting a significant amount of 86 items on the kids menu that's creating big holes in the system. And on the recapture side, we go back in and we fight for some of those transactions that you've made the food on, that was necessarily a long driver time or a long wait time. And we really fight for those charges to come back to the restaurant. And we fight with, the technology pieces, trying to make sure uptime is managed, and that all gets reconciled at the end of the day, and you can measure the noticeable difference from it.
How much is there like a figure or anything you could toss out there in terms of a percentage that people are able to reconcile or recapture in terms of using your product versus doing it themselves?
It's an ever evolving landscape, and just like in what you do, if you aren't specialized and you aren't 100% focused there, things slip through the cracks. So, we're able to get very high rate of recovery, somewhere in the 85 to 90% range of what we dispute we can recapture. But the bar is changing. I will tell you that 2 months ago it was different than it is today, and that less missing and incorrect items disputes are allowed than before. And something on order quality, which oftentimes might be the result of waiting in a bag for 30, 45 minutes, is a much easier transaction to win back on. Ultimately, I think, having a camera in the expo area and being able to provide additional documentation for the platforms to help them, for restaurants to ensure that would happen. But it's a very costly proposition, and very sci-fi futuristic, that I don't know many people want a camera in their restaurant, but it would be great to get a camera in there and have some computer vision and AI application towards it.
It's interesting that you do provide that kind of a solution, though. I think that's an intriguing route to go about it, making sure you have as much documentation on your end as possible should you need to file that. When you need to file that reconciliation, not should, most of the time. So, making sure you have proof that this driver did pick up that order and you did place all those items in front of them and they did put all of them in the bag and they had all the correct temperature and things like that. It's an intriguing thing to think about.
It's definitely something you got to think about. And in this business, you got to think about all the levers, and you got to manage all the levers constantly. And if you don't do it, nobody else will.
Something we mentioned a couple of times here now, the pricing intelligence, and a huge piece of information that came out, I think, just over the past couple of weeks, Linked Eat's acquisition of Sauce, and massive announcement there. I know, obviously, a lot of their technology is focused in terms of that pricing analysis and things they do over there. So was that a big piece of that acquisition, or how did that unfold, and what was the plan behind that partnership and that beginning?
Yeah, the Sauce team is really great to work with. I think we've always had trouble determining what's the best price to charge at certain times and where to charge. And bringing an intelligence into it removes some of the guesswork. It can help with franchisees. It can help you manage the system, and make sure that they're getting the best of both worlds, where you're not upsetting customers, but you're getting the most return, the most traffic, the most dollars on every item that you can. And so, a major driver for it is it's a great product, number one. They spent millions of dollars building a system that really just works and delivers results. And no one else was able to do that, or has been able since to do that in the industry, and is willing to take a risk in it. I think, the first one through the door it always gets a little bit messy, as you saw with some of the Wendy's stuff, but I really commend them for pushing the envelope and pushing things forward. And, presentation things aside, you can always present it in a certain way. And the industry's really shifted at the moment, and it's about value meal pricing, and less so discounting, but creating maybe a barbell pricing strategy of a low and high item. And what we do is we give you active recommendations of how to do that. And so we have value meal offerings that we can do. We know how to advertise on top of that to get the most of it. And it's something that, every other product shows you something. It's another place to look. It's another dashboard that you have to go in and you have to spend time on. And ours is more of a real time, helping you learning from you and getting more intelligent over time to create the best experience possible.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned like having another place to navigate in terms of that, because yeah, like even we created a restaurant dashboard for our restaurant partners to oversight on all their deliveries, but like you said, that is another place that these managers or owners, they have to log into, they have to navigate out of what they're already working into, and it takes them, 2, 3, 4 more steps just to get into that facility of technology. So that's an interesting thing to bring up, man.
We're all tired of dashboards. We're tired of shit that doesn't work. We're tired of higher fees. And we want something that is purpose built, that solves a need, that is measurable. And, you don't necessarily have to spend hours every day on it. You know that it's working for you in the background, and you can always intelligently tune it up.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. I like that a lot. I appreciate you saying that. I want to close it out here, getting into my realm a little bit. Obviously, the virtual concepts are only a food delivery product for the most part. Catering being my realm of the world is food delivery capabilities, and the food delivery service that Deliver That is. We talked a little bit on the quality piece of these delivery concepts, these virtual concepts, and I wanted to circle back a little bit. I think there's some, I forget where I saw this on LinkedIn, or someone had posted a little bit ago in terms of restaurants being able to mitigate food temperatures and the quality piece. And the article that was put out, 1,000 words, 2,000 words, whatever it was, and there was one single line that mentioned packaging and being able to mitigate that timeliness and food quality and food temperature. And I just thought it was wild that the consideration for what is such an easy solution to an issue like that was mentioned in such a short manner in an article like that. So I just wanted to ask you, what are your feelings on the quality piece of food delivery nowadays? Obviously, you've mentioned a handful of times the food's taking 30, 40 an hour to get to you at some point in time. Sometimes the deliveries are stacked. Drivers have multiple orders. So where do you sit right now with the food delivery realm?
Yeah, so food delivery, catering delivery is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. It's going to be a massive part of the industry. It's going to evolve and going to continue to develop. And you have to treat it similarly how you would treat your brick and mortar business. You've tried the food before you've given it to your customers. So you have to do the same thing on the delivery experience. You have to, as you quite rightly point out, look at the types of packaging that make sense, and deliver the best experience possible. Because some concepts do it really well and others don't necessarily. But that is a huge opportunity, as you pointed out, to really invest in packaging and develop a better experience, which can lead to better star ratings and thus more orders.
Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes because COVID brought along the solution that was DoorDash and Uber Eats and kind of amplified their services, people now almost want to shift the blame onto the services that were provided, and not like take advantage and really internalize what they're doing to not promote their product, if that makes sense.
I think with anything, it's always easy to blame the person who's not in the room, and it's always easy to kind of pass the buck onto there. And you should do everything that you can to maximize the chance of success and the probability of a good outcome. And some factors, like everything in life, are out of your control, and you have to leave that up to others or continue to help them refine and improve upon the experience. But there's many things that you can do on the catering side, on the delivery side, just to optimize that business a little bit more. I'm a fan of. Have you heard of Fogo de Chao?
I have, yes, 100%.
Yeah, so Fogo de Chao, just started doing some new stuff in their delivery space. The person who runs delivery there is called Wendy. And it's really interesting what they've done. I ordered from there a year ago, and it was different packaging experience. And this time, it's a great packaging experience. It was almost similar to the Fogo de Chao in-store business. I don't know how well it's doing. I assume it's doing well, and I see a lot of good reviews on there and good ratings. But that's one example of how things are changing and how packaging can really help influence and move the needle.
Well, but like, how did you feel like that second experience then was like that much different? Like when you got the product and you saw that it was in mindful packaging and that like ensures you that the food quality and food temp is going to be better as opposed to the food just arriving in a plastic bag. Like immediately from your perception as a customer, your initial experience when you see that arrive, you have a much better feeling.
Yeah, you're hitting on a very interesting psychological trend. Chinese food, we know what box it's coming in, or we know how it's coming. Pizza, we know what box it's coming in, and we know how it's coming. And we're conditioned and trained to expect those types of delivery experiences for probably the two items that we order most on delivery. And so, what we do at virtual dining and purpose building experiences for that, and what you can do in your regular delivery business should be the same.
All right. Well, Robbie, I appreciate your time today, man. Thank you so much. I do genuinely appreciate you, man. And thanks for everything you're doing out here in the restaurant industry. VDC, Linked Eats, obviously doing things to benefit these restaurants and promote what they can do inside and outside their four walls, man. So it's amazing and impressive. And I thank you so much.
Ben, thanks so much for having me. It's been great to be here and getting to know you a little bit more, and looking forward to seeing you in person soon.
Awesome, man. Thank you.